guys, it's Leah Garcia. Welcome to my studio for another dust made to your doorstep. Today we are making veggie trays. And the first step is to unpack your box. And once you get your slab laid out on your work board, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but that's okay. So I've provided you with 3 templates. And feel free to make your own. I just freehanded these veggies because I like them. But you know, if you really love cabbage, definitely feel free to do your own shapes. But these are here if you'd like to use them, and all 3 will fit on your slab. It's a bit of a puzzle, but I did make sure before I packed it that they all could fit. Now, let me see if I can remember how mine fit. So in your tool bag, you have a needle tool. You also have a plastic knife that you can cut with, whichever you're more comfortable with. I'm probably going to use my needle tool. Now I'm going to work on them one by one, so let's start with the carrot first. Okay, so I'm going to take it with my dust made card. I'm going to smooth it. So I didn't want you to smooth it before we cut it out, because if it hung off at parts, then you'd get that edge in your clay. So there is a bit of a texture for my slab roller on there, and if you'll just hold your card, apply pressure, and then smooth out. And this is going to smooth and compress the clay particles together. It also is your eraser, so if you at any time do something that you don't like, then you will smooth it out with your rib. So I use my needle tool to cut out my shapes. And the thing about the needle tool is it's very pointy, so it's nice to cut if you're trying to get close to the edge, but it doesn't cut. It actually just tears the clay. So I've got some rough bits on my edge. I'm gonna dip my finger in water and smooth those out. I'm gonna smooth those edges with my finger. I'm gonna flip it over and do the other side. I'm going, wherever it was on your board is a wet spot, and as I flip it, I'm gonna move it to a dry spot. That way it doesn't get stuck. All right, my carrot has been smooth. Edges are nice. It is time to add any texture that I'd like to do on it. So I actually did 2. This one I used contour lines going across the edge to kind of give it a little shape. And this one I pressed a cheesecloth texture into it. You see it. And I also pressed a rock at the top to give it just a little bit of organic texture, but you can definitely keep it smooth if you like. I just kind of want to give you the option to play around with texture if you wanted to. Even though it may not be the texture of a carrot, it still makes a fun and interesting piece to kind of experiment. Alright, so I found this little guy in the parking lot of the studio. Nothing fancy. And so I'll press it onto the leaves just to give a little bit of organic texture. Alright, my carrot's looking good. It's smooth, I got my lines drawn. If you draw your lines at a curve, it's a contour line and it gives the appearance of shape even though it's a flat surface. So it kind of gives your carrot a little bit of shape. Okay, so now moving on, it's time to do the radish. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way. And then whenever I pick it up from the end, not where the leaf is, because that's kind of a thin spot and it could tear. So let me place him over here, grab my radish. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the carrot. I'm going to take my dust made card and I'm going to smooth out the surface, and then I'm going to wet my finger and I'm going to smooth out the edge. Alright, so everything's smooth. When I added the water on the sides, it makes the area a little wet. So sometimes when your clay's wet, it will stick to the board, but if you move it to a dry spot, you just kind of keep moving it back and forth, it won't get stuck to the board. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the rock texture to my leaves. And then I'm gonna draw some contour lines that curve across my radish. For the carrot, I use my needle tool, but I do want it to be just a little different from the carrot, so I think I'll use the end of a paintbrush to make thicker lines. Alright, so I've got my radish. I did some contour lines. I added some lines on the leaves too, just for a little added texture. And then I put this one to the side, and now it's time to do the purple onion. I've got a smooth purple onion. So I'm gonna add my textures. Using my rock, I'm gonna do it on the leaves. Then I'm gonna do contour lines on the body. And this time I'm gonna do them instead of from side to side, up and down at a curve to get a little bit, just something different from the set of 3. And also gonna use a different end of a paintbrush again to get a different line thickness. Okay, so we've got a purple onion, a radish, and a carrot. Now, you can, if you want them to be flat, maybe you want to, I don't know what you want to do with them. But if you do want them to dry flat, you're going to lay them flat and then put your plastic over it. Not like it's food and it's going to spoil, but just drape it over them so that they dry slowly, because when clay dries, it dries on the outside first. And as it does, it shrinks and it pulls up. But this slows it down so it does it more even, and so you just have more slower drying time, and it doesn't work. But I want mine to be little trays, so I'm gonna curl up the edges. So if it is dry enough, when you bend it, it'll just stand up on its own. Or you can also use paper towels, and I just take pieces and twist it, and then tuck them under here, because however you leave it to dry is how it's gonna dry. So you can do that if you need help holding the edges up. Or mine's pretty dry and I'm not going for too harsh of an edge curled up, so I'm just gonna do it with my fingers. Oh, and I forgot one step. So on the bottom of our purple onion, I do wanna make little lines. So I'm gonna use my needle tool to make these little lines at the bottom. Now, I'm gonna curl my edges up. And I'm also gonna curl them up on the leaf too. Just to kind of bend it and give it some shape. They're not curled up too much on here, just a little bit. What's really gonna hold the shape is the bulb, the body of it. The leaves are really more just decoration. But I do want them to have a little shape, so I'm gonna pull it up at the leaves. My edges are curled up. I like my shape. I went and my purple onion is sitting on my work board, but it's not big enough for all 3 of them to sit. And so I went and got a cutting board. You can use a pan at home, any kind of surface to for them just to dry for a little bit and move out of the way. So I'm gonna wait until tomorrow to glaze these, because right now the clay is very wet. So as I glaze, the glaze isn't gonna absorb into the clay, so it's just gonna be kind of hard to see what I'm doing. So it'll be much easier if I wait until tomorrow and let this dry a little bit and then come back and glaze. So I'm just gonna set these to the side. That's why I wanted to have it on a board, to just easily move it out of my way, and I'll come back to it tomorrow. It has been 24 hours. I just let these sit out and dry. I didn't cover them up or anything. And they are much drier, almost bone dry, so I'll be able to see the glaze as I paint it on. It'll dry and absorb into the clay. When I do glaze these, be very gentle. Don't use a lot of pressure because they are very brittle and will snap like a little cracker. So be very gentle when painting them. And as I glaze these, you glaze them however you want. But I use the glaze color in my brush strokes to mimic those contour lines that we did on the body. So as these kind of go from top to bottom, so I just did a little bit of brush strokes with some purple. And on the bottom, just quickly, just think kind of loose. Don't think about it too much. The same for the radish. My contour lines went side to side, so I did the same with my brush strokes. And also the carrot. Feel free to paint them solid, but this is just how I did it. And for the leaves, I just did about maybe 2 coats of the green, but still, I also didn't think too hard about it being one solid color, because when it's lighter and darker in areas, it just kind of gives an added depth to it. And if leaves are, layered on top of each other, there is a little bit of depth. So you can do it solid or just think loose and have a lot of fun with it. They're glazed, they're done. I like them, they look good. It's time to pack back up the box. So, these are pretty big and flat. We definitely want to make sure that they are dry before we put them in the box. But, if you are able to glaze it, then it's probably dry enough. So I'm going to put my extra clay and my glazes on one side. And I'm going to lay my largest one, the purple onion, flat on the bottom, and then I'll use my plastic to kind of cushion in between. And I'll put my radish down and kind of fold over that plastic, and then put the carrot down. And then just put all of your tools around it. Just be careful not to mess up your beautiful work. Alright, and then I will shoot you a message and let you know what your pickup window will be on Sunday, and I'll come pick it up, and then I'll fire it and clear glaze it and drop it back off at your doorstep in about a week. No matter how long it takes. Hope you enjoyed.